To start out, I'm going to go ahead and prep my mannequin with the Paul Mitchell Hair and Body Tea Tree Moisturizer. Since he is switching up his style from this more textured look to our traditional comb over, I'm going to make sure that I'm breaking up any residual product that may be left over in his hair. And when I section his hair today, instead of doing a traditional square or a horseshoe, I'm going to actually go ahead and section him in the way that we're going to be styling his hair. Because with this haircut in particular, it will be disconnected on the one side and then blended on the other. So I'm going to go ahead and get him prepped. I'm going to section him out by using his temple for reference. I'm going to smooth that hair out of the way. So you can see that on the side, it's kind of more straight back. It does raise up towards the cowlick just slightly, kind of following more his natural bend there around that head, and then combing everything else off to the side. I'm going to start with my number 3 on my clipper guard. That way, in case he has some additional bulk, I can take that off before I start my fade. So going in with my number 3 lever closed, I'm going to anchor my clipper to the head. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to bring that up pretty high. I'm going to bring my comb down through that hair as I'm coming up with my clipper to help feed it through to remove most of that weight at once. As I work towards the back of the head, I'm going to follow it more straight across. Just like I said, removing that bulk. In case he did have a lot of hair, I would want to make sure that I could see underneath before I start my fade. Now once I reach 6 o'clock here, I could continue the rest of the way through the head, but a proficiency tip is actually to go over to the opposite side, starting at that temple. Put in your guide and then double check that both sides are even. I like to use my finger and my eye in order to tell, but that way we know we're not like fading him lopsided. Working my way back. Notice how I'm not taking the clipper all the way up to that part line. He still has a good amount of hair that's going to be left over towards the top. That way, if he did have a little bit more stubborn hair, more coarse hair, it's not going to stick straight out on him. Going in next with my number 2 guard. My lever is closed as well, creating a true number 2. I'm going to use that same anchor, pivot, and suspend. And what you're going to notice is the hair, as we're working into that number 3, doing that C-scoop motion, you're going to notice that that hair starts to just fade off and you're no longer going to hear it cutting. So this is just utilizing that fading down method. And I'm coming basically 1 finger or a ½ an inch below my number 3 that I already did, just to help it blend right into that number 3. Each of my sections, because the guard lengths are pretty close together, I want to make sure that I am following my guide. So I'm taking half of my previous section and half of my new section in with me. Next, I'm going to be going in with my number 1 clipper guard. I'm going to be going in with that same anchor, pivot, and suspend motion, and I'm going to be doing a C-scooping motion, making sure that I'm blending right into my number 3 and my number 2 that I've already done. Around the corner of the ear, I'm making sure to use the corner of my clipper, and we're just blending down into that number 1 at the bottom here. And again, each of my sections, I'm taking half of my previously cut section and half of my newer section. That way I'm making sure I'm following my guide. Not really having to use my comb as much to feed that hair through now that that hair is down to a shorter length. If you see I go over a section more than once, it's just because I may have seen like a stray hair that was missed the first time around. And one good thing about following a guide is you want a clean guide, so that way you're making sure you're maintaining that length all the way around the head. He does have his hair growing in a different direction right here by his ears, so I'm making sure to kind of go against the hair growth to really make sure I'm getting it cut down to that true length. Next step is to open my lever to create a half, and I'll be fading from that number 1 that we already did at the bottom into my half. Sometimes it can be a little scary to fade right into that 0, so I'm going to give myself a little bit of buffer room by taking that half and going in first and doing that same C-scoop extended motion that we've been doing. As I'm working right into that number 3, I'm making sure that I am keeping a nice flat back on the heel of my clipper. That way I'm blending right into that number 3, making sure that I'm not contouring to the shape of his head, but really keeping that nice flat back. And if this is a newer technique for you, you can listen and actually hear that hair stop cutting. Using the corner of my blade as I'm going around that ear. We'll close that lever and create that 0, and we're going to do that same method and scoop right into what we've already created. Going around that ear using the corner of that blade so we can get nice and tight without worrying about going too high or having a disconnection. As we work back, still maintaining, following our guide, taking half of our previously cut section maintaining that nice flat back on the heel of the clipper as we're working up off of the round of the head, making sure that we're not contouring to that head shape. Making sure that as you're working around that we're keeping it nice and even, not leaning or scooping into that head. We're just falling nice and flat back off of the head shape itself. Next thing to work on is going to be the top of the hair. So for this one, it is going to be disconnected right at that part line. Notice how we still have some weight there. So I'm going to be working on taking that down first. On this side here, because I am focusing just on this side where it tends to stick out right here by the temple region, I'm going to go through first and remove that weight by taking sections about the same width of my comb and cutting it with that 45. You want to make sure that you're staying comfortable. So instead of bending your wrist, you can also have your client tilt their head slightly away. This will allow you to get in and keep that angle more neutral. You can also come in palm to palm, whatever works best for you, as long as we're staying ergonomic. And we're just preserving as much hair as you can towards the top there. In this very front panel, making sure that we're taking it right to that front hairline before we make that cut, and we're not taking out any additional hair that we don't need to. Next, we'll work on the back crown. The back crown I've already separated, and we're going to start here in the center at 6 o'clock. We're going to be pulling it out, looking for our guide from the bottom, and then we're going to be cutting with a nice flat cutting angle to blend. I'm just looking for that disconnection. And then we're just meeting up with our guide from the side there. Up next, I'll be working on the top here. So in order to establish like the actual true length of my top here, I am going to comb it all forward, and I want to see where it lays at if it falls forward in his face. For my gentleman here, he basically told me he wanted it right at his eyebrow level when it fell forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure as we comb it all forward here, we're going to make sure that it comes right to the eyebrow, a little bit below, because the hair is damp. That way when it dries, it's not too short. And it looks like I'm taking off about 1/2 inch from the front length. Not holding it with super tight tension. I'm having little to no tension, so that way it's going to show that true length. And then as you can see, it sits right about his brows there. So using the back of a mohawk strip guide, the back of the guide there from the front section, I'm going to let that fall out and use that as my guide to cut flat straight to the back here. And I'm going to be blending right into my length from my crown area. So as I get a little closer, I'm going to make sure I pinch up some of that crown. So that way I'm able to see my short guide from the back and my short guide from the front there. And I'm just meeting it up. I'm not going to worry about following this around the crown and rounding that section because he may need that length in the back to keep his cowlicks down. After completing my mohawk strip down the center, I will split his hair completely over to the side. And I'm going to start in the back of my mannequin here, or my human. And I'm going to look for my guide in the center there. I do want him to have layering as he lays his hair over. And I don't want it so bulky just sitting right at the top. So instead of doing some square layering, I'm actually going to angle my fingers to give him a slight bit more layering off towards the side here. So holding it straight up to the ceiling, I'm going to angle it to give him those layers. There's our middle guide there. I'm going to follow it through. And then on the opposite side, I'm going to angle my fingers to blend before moving back. Once I complete that section, I'm going to go ahead and split that and utilize a traveling guide to work back and blend the rest of my comb over. Pulling it up, angling my fingers, looking for my guide underneath. There's my middle guide there. Looking for my guide underneath to connect those short points. And walking it over so we can also blend it to the side. And each section I'm making sure that I'm taking a clean section and it works all the way through to that side. The background really shouldn't have too much coming out except for those corners because we basically cut it, or we did cut it when we pulled it towards the back. And then we're going to be detailing. Now to finish out our blend, I'm going to go in remembering the laws of movement. Short hair pushes long. If I want his hair to push back right in this section, I want to make sure I have a little bit of shorter layering in this front temple area to help push that hair back naturally. So I'm going to make sure to hold my comb so that way I can have shorter to the front, longer to the back. And I'm going to go in with that hair growth to give it a soft blend. And I'm going to just work around that head, working from my points up at the top to my guide at the bottom. Again, going with that hair growth or the way I want that hair to lay, so it gives it a softer blend. In the back here again, keeping up with that angle. Now, since I've met the middle here, I'm going to flip my comb the opposite direction. Just meet it in the middle. Again, wanting it to lay sleeker to his face, I'm going to create those shorter layering in the front to the longer in the back. Just to help it lay a little bit more sleek for him. I'm going to go ahead and check his profile, just making sure that nothing is sticking out funky. He did have that little bit of hair laying funky from being in the bag, so I wanted to make sure that was nice and clean. And then we'll go through and do his hard part. For our hard part, one trick I like to utilize is cleaning up with my comb. I'll put my comb in right at that part nice and flat and put the base of the comb right on top of that line. That way I can make sure as I'm going in with my trimmer that I'm really keeping it nice and flat and straight. I'll also turn my trimmer over to come back through on the opposite way as well. Really just opening up or widening that line. Another angle, going in, getting the base of my comb there to help follow that straight line. And then turning my trimmer over, same thing, comb, follow the base of that line. And depending on how wide your client would like his hard part, you can always go wider. You just can't glue it back in. We haven't figured that one out yet. So So making sure that we start with less because we can always take out more. Also, cleaning up any of these hairs at the temple is really gonna give that look of that nice, clean, crisp finish. So shortening it up and then going in and taking out any of those additional like little baby hairs he may have. And you see how it just kind of cleans up his whole look there. Then we'll go around the ears and the neck, finishing out that taper. Since he's already down at a 0, we're just basically cleaning up the edges. For the beard, my gentleman is a little bit more simple. He likes a number 4 over the entire beard. We will fade his beard into his actual haircut, but I'm gonna remove a lot of this length that he does have on here. Making sure that I'm going underneath the beard, going against the grain, making sure that I'm getting it from every which way that that beard grows. So I'm getting a nice and even length. As I'm getting closer to his like lip mustache area, I'm making sure that I'm not like hitting him with the guard itself, but I'm avoiding like his nose tip and his lips. Making sure that I'm not putting too much pressure on his face, but I'm just going through and grabbing that hair. Now that he's been taken down to the 4, he has a 0 already right at his temple area here. So I'm gonna go in with my number 1 actually and go about a finger's width below that 0 that we already did. And then I'll pop off my guard, open it up to a 1/2 to blend it into my 0. Leave it open with my lever, pop back on my 1 to create a 1 1/2, and I'll go right below my 1 that I already did. Closing my lever if needed to finish out that blend. And then I'll take off my guard and I'm gonna use my comb and I'm gonna angle out to blend with my clipper over comb. I could continue to go down with my guards to blend it out 100% that way. But for proficiency purposes, I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of freehand between those 2 legs. We're gonna do the same on the opposite side here. Starting with that number 1. Taking off the 1, opening the lever to create a 1/2. Closing it if needed to finish that blend. Reopen it back up, put the 1 on to create that 1 1/2. Closing your lever if needed to blend. And then I'm gonna blend it the rest of the way with my clipper over comb, angling out to about the number 4 at the bottom there to my 1 1/2 up at the top. And then we just need to clean up above his lip. I'm gonna use my trimmer over comb. above his lip here, he's gonna have it about 1/2 inch, which is our number 4. So I'm gonna angle my comb out, holding that hair up off of 0. And then I'm gonna utilize that guide to blend to my guide on the outskirts of the mustache. Can be hard sometimes to get your guards underneath certain layers. I'm also checking for any balance, so he seems like he has a little bit of line at that top layer, so I'm going to pick it up off of 0. Give it just a slight bit of layering towards the tip of the ends of the hair, just to give it that softer look there. Do the same thing to finish out this side, angling from our guide in the middle to our guide on the outskirts. And then if we need to go through and soften that top little bit of ridge, we totally can. Then last step is just to clean up around the edges with your trimmer. I like to have the trimmer nice and flat to clean up around the beard. Underneath, I'm going to use that stamping method to really make sure he has that nice crisp line. I can make him look up, so I can see underneath his beard more clearly. In order to give his hair a solid foundation, I'm going to go ahead and take the construction paste. This is going to give him a little bit more of a flexible style. It's a medium hold, but it's got some fibers in it that'll help kind of like start that lift for us. So I'm going to go ahead and blow dry this in to give him additional lift into his hair. And mainly like concentrate it more towards the root itself. While I'm blow drying, I'm going to make sure that I'm not blow drying his comb over side up, because I don't want it stuck up or having any additional lift that I wasn't really looking for. So really concentrating on the 1/2 of the head. And as you can see, he already has a whole lot of structure to it just with blow drying that in there. Next up, I'm going to take the reformer. I'm just going to take a small amount of that. I'm going to work it through his hair. I like to mix it into my fingertips, so that way as I'm raking my fingers through, it really helps to like coat each individual hair. And then at the same time, I'm going to take what's on my fingers as well, and I'm going to start to comb down this section on the opposite side to really give them that nice sleek side. And then to seal the deal, to finish out all the details here, I'm going to go ahead and put some dry paste in there. This is just going to provide that additional texture and definition to really kind of like highlight that texture that's in his hair. So again, kind of raking that through. This is going to give him an ultra matte finish. And instead of me just like slapping it on, I'm like raking my fingers through to give them more of that texture and definition. If you didn't have nails, you could totally use like a bigger clipper guard as well and rake that through to help give it that texture too. Now the last thing for my style here is to lay down his beard. So I'm going to use the shaping cream. This is just a little bit lighter weight to help his beard lay down. Taking that shaping cream, I'm just going to work it through his beard to just help it lay more sleek to his face now that we got that shape all nice and tightened up. And then any of the leftovers that's on your fingers, you can totally use to lay anything else down that you want, but just try not to disturb, which you already did.